Welcome, Mississippi State fans and visiting Rebel fans as well. We're generous and welcoming folks here at Mississippi State, here on the campus of the university outside Davis-Wade Stadium, where tomorrow evening, Steve, the game that settles it all, and I do mean all in quite a few cases, not just the Bulldog Bowl eligibility, Ole Miss still chances of bowl eligibility, perhaps even a couple of coaching regime fates. This is what an Egg Bowl is all about. Everybody is terrified of losing.
Well, it's about change, David. I mean, it's as simple as that. And, Mississippi State fans woke up this year and said, you know what, we hammered Ole Miss last year, and they're losing so much on offense, and expected this to kind of be a cakewalk of a game. Well, Ole Miss has found some spark with John Rice Plumlee as their quarterback, and now all of a sudden the outlook about this ball game is completely different. There are a lot of Mississippi State fans that expect Ole Miss to show up here and win like the previous four visiting teams have done in this series.
Of course, Mississippi State showed up in Oxford in 2016 expecting that they would probably lose the game and pulled off one of the more miraculous Egg Bowls in my own memory, certainly, for the Bulldogs to get bowl eligible. And now the Rebels here are kind of trying to flip that script because there's still some APR possibilities for them with 5 wins to get into a bowl game as well. Whereas the Bulldogs win, and you're absolutely in a bowl, probably in the Music City, quite likely Memphis as well. But that's the 2 teams that State will submit. None of that matters right now. What really matters, Steve, is something that you and I have harped on all season, and we're going to just keep hammering the point, especially leading tomorrow. I think this game comes down to which team wants to be there for kickoff. And that's a worrisome thing because too many times we've seen this 2019 Bulldog team just not show up ready emotionally, tactically, whatever, to play a football game. Do you think that can turn tomorrow night, or is it too late? Is this up to the players now instead of the coach?
Well, there's been a lot of inconsistency with that, David. I mean, you go on the road and you play Arkansas in what was a must-win ball game, even though the Razorbacks proved to be a pretty hapless opponent, and State looked ready to play from the opening kick. Then you come out last week and you play against, you go against Alabama 2 weeks ago, and it was very reminiscent of the Auburn game. And then at that point you can't say, well, we just had a bad day on the Plains. It's beginning to be a recurring theme, especially coming out of open dates. And in the first quarter of the game against Abilene Christian, it just looked like State was just kind of going through the motions. But, David, I'll be honest with you. If you need a coach to turn you on for this one, you're probably playing the wrong sport. I mean, these Bulldogs have got to come out. You've got to be self-motivated. This has got to be a game where you play at your highest level of intensity, no matter who the coach is, no matter what's at stake.
And, of course, we raise this because there's been 2 times this season where the Bulldogs faced what you'd call a transition-type game, Kansas State and Tennessee, and we know what happened. But now they know what goes wrong when they don't show up ready entirely to play a ball game. You would hope that the team captains, Errol Thompson, Darrell Williams, and others, veterans of this game, even some really inspirational freshmen who are showing a lot of fire themselves, just say, guys, we've got to be ready for this game. Otherwise, we're going to get humiliated on our own field.
And not to mention, seniors like Darrell Williams don't want to be the senior class that ends the bowl streak in their senior year. There's a certain level of pride with that. We remember A.J. Jefferson in that group back in 16 and Richie Brown, how that was something they were really almost panicked about down the stretch and found a way to get into a bowl game and ultimately win that bowl game. And, David, in these must-win games against Ole Miss in recent years, State has found a way to win the ball game and then gone on to win the bowl game.
Of course, you're referring to 2011 and 2013. In 2011, of course, here on Scott Field, the Bulldogs were favored and took care of business. 2013, a different matter, but as you remember, Damian Williams kept it under control. Dak Prescott comes on, plays his 4th quarter in overtime heroics, and the Bulldogs score bowl eligibility. That's at stake again. You want to go a complete decade, 10 years with a bowl game. And now, let's face it, the stadium behind us, some of the funding for this stadium expansion was tied to bowl money, so it is very much in Mississippi State's interest all around to finish strong, get back to a bowl, and build some momentum for 2020. Besides, there's signing season coming up. Let's hit on that, too, because this is a recruiting weekend as well. Not just for the Bulldogs, but for the Rebels, because some of those prospects that are coming to the game are considering both teams.
That's true, David. And fans need to remember, too, last weekend State couldn't host any prospects, part of the sanctions from the Tutorgate scandal. There'll be a lot of prospects here, a lot of in-state guys, not just for this class, but the next one. And so anytime that you have a chance to showcase your talents and your program in front of college football prospects, you want to do a good job. State will also have official visitors this weekend of the junior college variety as they begin to kind of finalize the class for 2020 in anticipation of a December signing period that should be pretty good for Mississippi State, assuming things are kind of as they are now, as soon as there's not a change in the guard of sorts. But the bottom line, David, is that anytime that you have a chance to beat your in-state rival, to show, even if it's just 1 year of in-state supremacy, you got to do it.
All right, you've cracked the lid on that box, but frankly, that lid's been pretty loose for several weeks now around Bulldog Country. I'm not going to put you on the spot or myself and say that we definitely expect this or that to happen depending on outcome of tomorrow's game. Let's just say it is in the absolute best interest of the current coach and the current administration and Bulldog football in general for the foreseeable future that they win tomorrow night.
I don't think there's any question, David. And, again, we don't want to paint ourselves in a corner here, but, it's like Emery Ballard told me years ago, David, God rest his soul, when we interviewed him, and he said, winning the Egg Bowl changes everything. The grass is greener, the water is cleaner, and your girlfriend's prettier. And in this situation, the Mississippi State season has been a forgettable one. This is a chance to salvage something and kind of right the ship, so to speak. But, you never want to lose to Ole Miss, but to have the Rebels come into Davis Wade Stadium and keep the Bulldogs out of bowl eligibility and kind of end the streak, that is not something that anybody's prepared to live with. And when you look at the trajectory of the program, you've got to end this thing on a winning note, get to a bowl game, and kind of get some momentum heading into next year and hope that Garrett Schrader can become the face of this program. But, it's a very, very important game for a lot of reasons.
And not only that, I know sometimes we're guilty of overstating the value of bowl games as far as practice preparation for younger players. In this case, this particular 2020 roster and beyond, a bowl game is not just helpful, it is almost necessary to get guys like Schrader, your freshman cornerbacks, your defensive linemen, to start putting a new offensive line together. This year, it really matters to go to a bowl game.
It's almost like getting a second spring practice. That's because then there's a lot more continuity with your implementation and your install and that sort of stuff, because the season's elongated into the month of December. Well, then you get a few weeks off and you're right back into spring football, and then you're into off-season conditioning. So there's not a lot of time off, but you don't want to have that gap in your preparation when your opponents are getting that routine 15 bowl practices that they're going to get.
So we've set it up for tomorrow evening. Steve and I will be talking again before the game as well. Of course, being Thanksgiving holiday, a lot of people are late arriving here on campus. The weather forecast is very good, cool, but what do you expect this time of year? So come prepared for that. But this is a game where Bulldog fans can make a difference. Yes, you want the Bulldogs to come out there motivated entirely and on their own to play this game. But they could use all the help they can get in this one, because if they don't show up ready to play, it's going to be a very, very cold winter here in Starkville, Mississippi. So stating it as bluntly as we can, help them out, show up. We'll be here, and we'll be talking about it both before and after tomorrow evening's events. For Steve Robertson and our crew from Jeans Bay 24/7 here on the campus of Mississippi State University, this is David Murry.